The galaxy was a vast place, filled with a variety of alien species. Each had its own history, its own way of life, and its own power. The Galactic Council, made up of leaders from every major race, had kept the peace for centuries. It maintained a delicate balance of power, keeping conflicts to a minimum and ensuring that no one species could rise to dominate the others. The peace was fragile but steady, and every species knew their place. However, something was about to shake that peace. To its core, started with a single message, a distress call from a small, forgotten planet on the edge of the galaxy. The call was brief, urgent, and clear. "We need help. Contact humanity. We are under attack." At first, the message was dismissed. Humanity had always been seen as a minor species in the galaxy, a planet of insignificant importance. Their ships were outdated, their technology primitive by galactic standards. No one expected much from them. But there was something about this message that caught the attention of the Galactic Council. It was not the message itself, but the fact that the planet requesting aid had sent the call to humanity specifically. It was almost as if they were depending on the humans to save them. The Council debated what to do. Most of the alien leaders were certain the request was a mistake. Humanity had no standing in the galaxy. Their military was small, weak, and outdated. They had no real defense against the more advanced species that dominated the stars. Some of the leaders even laughed at the thought of humans coming to the rescue. "Let them handle it," they said. "It's not worth our time." Despite the doubts, a small group of humans volunteered to respond to the call. They understood the risk they were taking. But humanity had always been a resilient species, never backing down from a challenge. No matter how impossible it seemed, the human fleet that responded was not impressive by galactic standards. Their ships were old, their technology far behind the latest advancements in the galaxy. The ships looked like rusted metal, their hulls battered by years of use. Most of the galaxy had seen ships like these slow, clunky, and easy targets in battle. But as the human fleet approached the planet, something unexpected happened. The alien forces already engaged in the battle against the helpless planet were taken by surprise. The human ships, instead of running away or retreating, entered the battle with a speed and precision that defied all logic. The alien commanders were the first to notice something was wrong. The human ships, despite their outdated appearance, seemed to move in ways that no ship could, shifting positions faster than should have been possible, dodging fire in ways that shouldn't have been possible. As they fired at the humans, their weapons had little effect. The human ships seemed to absorb the energy blasts, their shields rippling in strange patterns. Before returning the fire with an energy that pushed back the enemy forces, the more the battle raged, the stranger it became. The laws of physics seemed to bend around the human ships. Gravity didn't behave the same way around them. The ships didn't just dodge enemy blasts. They seemed to twist and turn in the air as if they were manipulating the very space around them. The alien forces, at first certain they were winning, were now starting to doubt their advantage. These weren't the humans they had been told about. This was something different. This was not supposed to be possible. The Galactic Council had been watching from a distance, unsure of what to make of the situation. They had never seen anything like this before. Their scientists and engineers quickly began scrambling to understand the strange phenomena. How were the human ships doing this? What technology were they using? None of their records showed anything remotely similar. As the battle continued, the human fleet pushed back the alien forces. The once imposing enemies, who had attacked the helpless planet, now found themselves on the defensive. The strange human warships seemed to have an answer to every attack, an escape for every counterstrike. It was as if the ships had some hidden power, some secret weapon that no one knew about. The most shocking part of all was that the human fleet didn't just fight the enemy, they manipulated the environment around them. Human ships seemed to warp space itself. The enemy's weapons didn't just miss, they were bent away from their targets, as though the laws of physics were being rewritten by the human technology. The shields of the ships absorbed attacks and reflected them with devastating force, creating explosions that seemed to come from nowhere. The galactic leaders, who had once laughed at the humans, were now scrambling for answers. This wasn't supposed to happen. No one had ever seen anything like it. The human ships were not just fighting, they were rewriting the rules of war itself. The alien forces, outmatched and confused, finally retreated. They had no choice but to pull back, leaving the humans victorious. The planet, once under siege, was now safe. The human fleet had saved the day. They had done it with a power no one had expected. Back on the Galactic Council, the leaders were silent. The room was filled with a tense quiet. No one knew what to say. They had all been wrong about humanity. They'd underestimated them in the worst possible way. One of the council members, an alien of great importance, finally spoke. What just happened? How could they do that? Their ships should have been destroyed. The chief scientist of the council stood up. He was one of the leading experts in galactic technology and had been watching the battle unfold through his own research. I don't know. But whatever they used to win that battle, it defies all known science. We have no records of anything like it. The leaders of the galaxy were stunned. They had always thought of humanity as a weak, insignificant species. Yet in one battle, they had proven themselves to be far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The galaxy was in shock. The old balance of power had been shaken, and now there was a new player on the field, one that no one had expected. Humanity's warships had defied all known science, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The aftermath of the unexpected victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, once confident in their control over the balance of power, now faced a troubling reality. Humanity, a species once considered weak, had demonstrated an unexpected and overwhelming force. No one could understand it. The human warships had defied every known law of physics, and the alien forces that had attacked the peaceful planet were retreating, completely outmatched. The council's chambers were filled with tension. Alien leaders from every corner of the galaxy met in a hastily arranged meeting. The once orderly discussions now had an edge of panic. There was no clear explanation for what had just happened. How had humanity, with its outdated technology, managed to defeat forces far stronger and more advanced? How did they do it? The Elan leader asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Their ships should have been easily destroyed. We have never seen anything like this before? The chief scientist of the council, a member of the highly intelligent Kessan species, stood up. She was one of the most respected minds in the galaxy, having studied and tested nearly every form of weaponry and technology known to the galaxy. She was shaken, not by the human victory, but by the sheer impossibility of what she had witnessed. I don't know, she admitted, shaking her head in frustration. Their ships used a form of energy we have no record of, the way their shields reacted, the way their weapons bent the laws of space and time. It was as if they were rewriting reality itself. The council fell silent, digesting this. If the human ships had defied science as they knew it, what did that mean for the galaxy? The balance of power that had been so carefully crafted was now at risk, and no one had any answers. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans who had taken part in the battle were still celebrating their unexpected victory. The fleet had returned to Earth, and there was a growing sense of pride among the people. They'd faced overwhelming odds, and they had won. But their victory was bittersweet. They knew that their success had caught the attention of the galaxy's most powerful species, and they had no idea what that attention would bring. In the aftermath, Earth's leaders and military strategists gathered to assess the situation. They, too, were struggling to understand what had happened. How had their warships performed in ways no one thought possible? General Marcus Hayes, the leader of the fleet, addressed the group. We know something's different about these ships, but no one can explain what happened. Our engineers are still trying to reverse engineer the technology we used, but it's unlike anything we've ever seen before. Another officer, Captain Sarah Jensen, nodded, and the energy source. No known power source that could explain how these ships were able to operate at such a level. Even our best scientists are scratching their heads. The room was filled with murmurs of concern. Despite their victory, humanity knew they were standing on uncertain ground. They had been thrust into a much larger stage than they had ever expected, and the galaxy was watching them closely. Back in the Galactic Council, the leaders debated what to do next. The humans had proven themselves in battle, But the question remained, what was humanity's true potential? Were they a threat to the galaxy? Or was their power just a fluke? And if it wasn't a fluke, what would happen if they began to unlock more of their hidden capabilities? "We need to find out what's behind their warships," said the leader of the Zillan species, a large and imposing figure known for their sharp intellect. "They have a power that we cannot understand. If we don't act quickly, humanity could become an uncontrollable force in the galaxy." The debate continued for hours, but no solution was found. The truth was, no one knew how to handle this new player on the field. Humanity had not only proven itself capable of fighting against much stronger forces, but it had done so using technology that was completely alien to anything the galaxy had ever seen. As days passed, more information came to light. Scientists from several alien species began to study the wreckage of the battle. They found strange energy signatures in the debris, evidence of something powerful and foreign. There was a sense of urgency in the air. The galaxy's leaders knew they could not allow humanity to continue to develop its technology unchecked. But they also understood that trying to confront humanity directly could be disastrous. No one knew what the humans were truly capable of. Perhaps the leader of the Galrith species suggested, "We should approach them diplomatically. Perhaps they do not wish to dominate the galaxy, but rather to join it as equals. We must learn more about their intentions." This idea seemed to offer some hope. However, it was clear that the situation was delicate. Any misstep could spark a war. The galaxy's leaders needed to act carefully, but time was running out. The question remained, could they control humanity, or would they be forced to contend with them as a powerful new force in the galaxy? Meanwhile, on Earth, the human government began to take a more cautious approach. With the knowledge that their warships had defied all expectations, Earth's leaders knew they had to be careful about their next steps. They had won the battle, but the true war had only just begun. The United Nations held an emergency session, the leaders from all around the world gathering to discuss the future. "We've shown the galaxy our strength," President Elizabeth Carter said, her voice steady. "But we don't know what the galaxy will do in response. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next." The diplomatic channels with the Galactic Council were already being established. Earth was now officially in contact with the rest of the galaxy, and they knew that the next few steps would determine humanity's future. Would they be welcomed into the fold, or would they face hostility from the galactic powers that had underestimated them for so long? Back on the battlefield, the alien forces that had been repelled by the humans were regrouping. Some of them were still too stunned to take immediate action, while others were already planning their next moves. The once proud galactic empires were now faced with a reality they had never expected. Humanity was not the weak, insignificant species they had believed it to be. Humanity was something far more dangerous, and they had only begun to show their power. The galaxy's future was no longer certain. The peaceful balance of power that had lasted for so long was now in jeopardy. The next chapter in the galaxy's history was about to be written, and humanity had just made its mark as the human fleet prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. They knew one thing: they had no choice but to face the unknown. The galaxy was watching, and whatever happened next would change everything. Humanity had shown that they were capable of things no one had imagined, and the future would depend on how they chose to wield that power. In the days following humanity's surprising victory, the galaxy was in a state of uncertainty. The Galactic Council, once confident in its rule, now faced an unprecedented challenge. The human fleet had not only outperformed expectations, but had done so in ways that defied all known scientific principles. No one understood how humanity had achieved such feats. The more the galaxy's leaders tried to study the human technology, the more questions they found. On Earth, President Elizabeth Carter was growing increasingly concerned about what came next. The humans had proven their strength, but the question remained: would the galaxy accept them, or would they view humanity as a new threat? She sat in a conference room with her top advisors, staring out at the massive screen that displayed a map of the galaxy. The situation was delicate, and she knew the next steps would be critical. We've been thrust into the spotlight, and we have no idea what the other species are thinking about us. President Carter said, her voice filled with uncertainty. We have to make sure we don't make any wrong moves. If we show weakness now, we might never recover. General Marcus Hayes, the leader of the human fleet, stood beside her. The humans fought well, but we can't deny that we're still in the dark about our own technology. We don't fully understand how our ships did what they did. We need to know more. Exactly, President Carter replied. We need answers. We need to be ready for anything. The galaxy is watching, and they won't wait for us to figure it out. Meanwhile, back in the Galactic Council, things were even more tense. The leaders of the galaxy had never imagined that humanity could be this powerful. Many of them had written off Earth as insignificant, a planet far behind in terms of technology and strength. But now, everything had changed. The human warships had performed beyond their wildest imagination. It wasn't just the ships. It was the way they fought. They bent the very fabric of space around them, moving faster than should have been possible, and their shields absorbed attacks in a way no one had ever seen. The more we try to study their technology, the less we understand, said one of the council members, a short and wide alien from the Zillan species. Their ships don't follow any known laws of physics. We've tried every method, and we still can't explain it. We need to know how they achieve this power. Our technology is unlike anything we've seen before, replied the Kessin scientist, her voice tinged with frustration. They don't even use conventional energy sources. The way their shields function, the way their weapons work, it's as if they have unlocked an entirely new dimension of science. The Kessin scientist had spent hours reviewing the data from the battle. Nothing about it made sense. The human ships seemed to be tapping into energy fields that shouldn't exist, and they were manipulating gravitational forces in ways that no one had ever considered. It was clear that the humans had something hidden, something the galaxy wasn't prepared for. We need to learn more about their ships, the Zillan leader insisted. If we don't, humanity could become a threat. We can't allow a species this powerful to remain an unknown factor in the galaxy. The council was divided. Some of the leaders wanted to confront humanity head-on, demanding answers and possibly even taking their ships for study. Others, however, felt it would be wiser to approach the humans diplomatically, offering peace and cooperation. But the tension was palpable. If humanity's warships had the ability to defy the known laws of science, what else could they do? What other secrets did they possess? Back on Earth, the human government began to take action. President Carter called for a meeting with Earth's top scientists and military strategists. They needed to figure out what made their warships so powerful before anyone else did. The last thing they wanted was for the galaxy to see them as a threat. We need to understand our own technology, General Hayes said, addressing the group of scientists gathered in the war room. We've shown the galaxy that we're not to be underestimated, but we have to make sure we're not flying blind. There's something in those ships, something that could change everything. We need to reverse engineer it, figure out how it works. Dr. Emily Cooper, the lead scientist on the human fleet's advanced weapons project, nodded. We've already started working on it, but it's slow going. The energy fields our ships are using are completely different from anything we've encountered before. We're dealing with a new kind of power. The ship's shields alone can't even replicate their behavior in our labs, can't we? Just isolate a part of the ship and study it. Captain Sarah Jensen asked, a tactical expert who had been with the fleet during the battle. We could, Dr. Cooper replied. But the ship's systems are so interconnected that separating any one part could cause it to fail. And even if we manage to isolate something, we may not be able to replicate it. This is unlike anything we've ever seen. The room fell into silence. The truth was, humanity was at a crossroads. They had something extraordinary, but they didn't fully understand it. The galaxy had already seen their strength, and soon, other alien species would demand answers. If humanity couldn't figure out their own technology, they would be at the mercy of those who could. We need a plan, President Carter said, breaking the silence. We can't wait for the galaxy to decide what to do with us. We have to be proactive. We need to send a message. We need to show them we're not just a military power, we're a force to be reckoned with, but we also want peace. Peace. General Hayes asked. They'll see us as weak. We're in no position to negotiate until we understand what we're dealing with. I'm not suggesting we give up our position of strength, President Carter replied, but we have to play our cards carefully. If we show them we're serious about being a part of this galaxy, we might find allies instead of enemies. We have to let them know we're not here to dominate, we're here to survive. The discussion continued for hours, but a plan was beginning to form. They knew they had to keep the upper hand, but they also needed to prepare for the future. Humanity's future was now inextricably tied to the galaxy, and whatever came next, they needed to be ready. The next day, the Earth's leaders sent out a message to the Galactic Council, offering a meeting to discuss humanity's place in the galaxy. It was a bold move, one that showed their willingness to cooperate, but it was also a move that would test the galaxy's response. Would the galaxy welcome humanity with open arms, or would they see it as a new threat to their established power? Meanwhile, alien factions began to regroup. The alien forces that had been beaten by humanity's unexpected power were now rethinking their strategies. Some of them saw humanity as a new ally, a potential force for good in the galaxy. Others saw them as a dangerous unknown, species that needed to be controlled before it grew too powerful. And in the background, as the humans continued their efforts to reverse engineer their warships, something else was happening. A new, unknown force was slowly building, one that even humanity hadn't fully realized yet. What was hiding inside their ships, and what would it mean for the galaxy? The questions lingered, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had stepped onto the stage, and the rest of the galaxy would have to decide how to respond. Would they be allies or enemies? The message from Earth had been sent. The Galactic Council, once united in their skepticism of humanity, now found themselves at a crossroads. The humans had done the unexpected first. They had shown their strength by defeating much more advanced alien forces, and now they were offering a chance for dialogue, a chance for peace. The galaxy's leaders, unsure of how to react, sat in a tense silence as they awaited a response from their respective governments. On Earth, President Elizabeth Carter was feeling the weight of the situation. She had made the call for peace, but there was no guarantee that the galaxy would take it well. Humanity had shown power, but power alone couldn't guarantee trust or safety. As she sat in her office, looking at the galactic map projected before her, she knew that what came next would determine the future of her people. We've made the first move, General Marcus Hayes said, pacing in the room. But we don't know what the galaxy will do. If they accept us, that's one thing. If they reject us, it's another. We'll have to be ready for whatever happens. President Carter nodded, her thoughts heavy. We can't afford to look weak, Marcus. They're watching us closely, and if they see us hesitate, they might think we're unsure of our place here. That's true, General Hayes agreed. We also can't act like we own the galaxy. If we come across as arrogant or threatening, it'll only make things worse. The room was filled with a sense of urgency. The situation was delicate, and the future of humanity in the galaxy was uncertain. Earth had sent the message with good intentions, but the truth was, no one knew how the galaxy would react. Days passed, and the tension continued to rise. In the Galactic Council, the message from Earth was being carefully debated. Some leaders felt it was an opportunity to open up relations with humanity, to gain a new ally in the galaxy. Others saw it as a threat, a move to establish dominance. The balance of power was shifting, and no one knew how to navigate this new reality. I still don't trust them, the leader of the Rithlian species said, his voice cold. Their ships don't obey the laws of science. What's to stop them from using that power against us? That's why we need to know more, the Kessin scientist responded, her eyes narrowed in thought. We've studied their ships as much as we can, but there's still so much we don't understand. If they're willing to talk, we need to take that opportunity to learn from them. We can't afford to ignore this. But we can't just welcome them with open arms, the Zillan leader interjected. They've proven they have a power we can't. Explain, what if they decide to use it against us? What if they don't want peace at all? The debate continued for hours. Some factions called for caution, urging the council to reject humanity's offer and prepare for the worst. Others argued for diplomacy, hoping that a peaceful approach could prevent a war. But one thing was clear. Humanity had disrupted the status quo, and no one could be sure of what would happen next. While the council debated, Earth's government had already begun preparations for the possibility of further conflict. Despite the peaceful message they had sent, they were not blind to the realities of the situation. Humanity had shown their strength, but the galaxy still viewed them as a wild card. They had to be prepared for any outcome. General Hayes gathered the top military leaders and strategists to discuss their next steps. "We've proven that we can fight," he said, looking around the room. "But we need to think beyond that. We need to secure our place in the galaxy. If the council rejects us, we can't afford to be caught off guard." Captain Sarah Jensen, the tactical expert who had been with the fleet, spoke up. "We have to understand that we can't fight every war. We may have the power now, but we're still a small species. We need allies, and that means we need to show that we're willing to cooperate, not just dominate." "Agreed," General Hayes said. "But we have to show strength while we do it. We can't let the galaxy think we're weak. If we have to fight, we will, but our goal should be peace. The last thing we want is to provoke a war we're not ready for." In the days that followed, Earth's leaders continued to monitor the situation closely. The Galactic Council had not responded yet, but rumors began to spread. Some believed the Council would accept humanity's offer, while others feared rejection. The waiting game was becoming unbearable. President Carter knew they had to be ready for whatever came next. Finally, the message came. The Galactic Council had agreed to meet with humanity. The leaders of the galaxy would send a delegation to Earth to discuss the future of their relationship. The news was met with mixed reactions. Across the galaxy, some celebrated the possibility of peace, while others saw it as a mistake, a chance for humanity to establish dominance over the galaxy. There was no turning back now. On Earth, the news was met with a sense of relief. President Carter addressed the nation, her voice calm but firm. "The galaxy has agreed to meet with us. This is an opportunity, but we must remember that we are not the only ones with power. We must show the galaxy that we are here to cooperate, to build something new. But we must also show them that we are strong enough to stand on our own." The meeting was scheduled to take place in a neutral location, far from the homeworlds of any particular species. It would be an opportunity for the leaders of the galaxy to hear directly from humanity, to understand what they wanted, and to decide how they could coexist in a galaxy that had been so carefully balanced for so long. On the day of the meeting, President Carter, General Hayes, and the top diplomats of Earth were on their way to the designated location. As their ship traveled through space, they couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. This was history in the making. Humanity had never been in a position like this before. They'd always been a minor player, a species that others had dismissed. But now, they were at the center of the galaxy's attention. The ship entered the neutral space station, and the delegation from the Galactic Council was already waiting. Leaders from all the major species were present, their faces serious. The meeting would not be easy, and the stakes were high. President Carter took a deep breath as she stepped onto the station's platform. This was it. The future of humanity was about to be decided. The meeting that would decide humanity's future in the galaxy had arrived. President Elizabeth Carter, General Marcus Hayes, and their top diplomats stood in the vast, neutral conference hall. Surrounded by representatives from dozens of alien species, the leaders of the galaxy were present, each one eyeing humanity with a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and fear. This was a moment that could either bring peace or spark conflict. President Carter took a deep breath as she stepped forward, her gaze steady. She knew this was more than just a meeting. It was humanity's chance to prove they were not a threat, but also not to be underestimated. She looked at the faces of the alien leaders before her, knowing they had no choice but to listen. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," President Carter began, her voice clear and calm. "We know that humanity's sudden appearance on the galactic stage has raised many questions. We are here to answer those questions and to show that we seek peace, cooperation, and understanding." Her words echoed through the hall, and for a moment there was silence. The representatives of the Galactic Council listened intently, their faces unreadable. Some nodded while others remained tense, waiting for humanity's next move. General Hayes stood beside her, his military uniform sharp and commanding. He knew that while diplomacy was necessary, he could not let humanity be seen as weak. "We understand that our sudden appearance has been a shock to many of you," he said, his tone firm. "But I want to make one thing clear. We did not seek conflict. When we responded to the distress call, we acted because it was the right thing to do. We didn't expect the results that followed, but we are ready to face whatever comes next. As equals?" A murmur ran through the room, and President Carter continued. "We are not here to impose our will on the galaxy, do not wish to dominate or control. We are here to ensure that humanity has a place in this vast universe. Believe that peace is possible, but it will require cooperation and respect between all of us." The alien leaders exchanged glances, and one by one they began to speak. The first was an Elon leader, a tall figure with bright blue skin and glowing eyes. "Your ships are unlike anything we have ever seen," the Elon said, their voice soft, but filled with authority. "We've studied your technology, and we do not understand how it works. Your victory against a superior enemy is still fresh in our minds. What is it that you humans have? What kind of power do you wield?" President Carter and General Hayes exchanged a glance. This was the question they had expected. The truth was, they didn't have all the answers themselves. They had seen the power of their warships, but they hadn't yet unlocked all its mysteries. "The truth is," General Hayes began, "we don't fully understand it ourselves. What we do know is that our ships are powered by a new form of energy, something that our scientists are still studying. It's not a weapon per se, but a way of manipulating energy in space. And we believe that, once we understand it fully, it could be used to benefit everyone." The Kessin scientist, a highly respected member of the Galactic Council, spoke next. "You say this energy could benefit everyone. But how do we know that humanity will use it responsibly? What if your ships decide to turn on us? What if your power becomes a tool of oppression?" General Hayes stood tall, his hands clasped behind his back. "We are not asking for trust," he said firmly. "We are asking for a chance to prove ourselves. We have fought for our survival, and now we seek peace. If you are willing to work with us, we will share everything we know about our technology. But trust goes both ways. We cannot be expected to cooperate if we are constantly treated as a threat." The room fell silent again. The tension was thick, but President Carter could see that the alien leaders were listening. They were considering humanity's words, weighing their options. Then, the leader of the Zillan species, an imposing figure with a deep voice, spoke up. "We've heard what you've said, humans, but there's still a question that remains. You're not here to dominate. Then why did you fight so fiercely? You didn't just defend yourselves, you destroyed our enemies. You rewrote the rules of combat. Why? Why didn't you simply stop after the battle was won?" President Carter looked at General Hayes, who gave a slight nod. They'd anticipated this question too. "Because in the end, we wanted to send a message," President Carter said. "We wanted to show that we will not be pushed around. We are not asking for power. We're not seeking to control anyone, but we will fight for what's ours. We'll fight to protect our people, our freedom, and our place in the galaxy." The words hung in the air. The alien leaders were thoughtful, their eyes shifting as they considered the implications. They had never encountered a species like humanity, one that was so willing to fight but equally committed to peace. A small, quiet voice from the back of the room spoke up. It was a representative from a minor species, one that had been largely ignored in the past. "You humans," the voice said, "are different. I can feel it. You've shown us that you're capable of great strength. But you've also shown us that you're willing to fight for what's right, something we all need to think about." The murmurs in the room grew louder. Even the most skeptical leaders were beginning to soften. Humanity had proven itself in battle, but more importantly, they had shown a willingness to stand up for peace. For a long moment, the room was still. Then, the Kessin scientist spoke again. "Perhaps we have underestimated you. perhaps humanity does deserve a place in this galaxy. But I still have one more question. How do we know that this power you possess won't be used for harm in the future? General Hayes looked around at the council members. He knew that this was the heart of the issue. We can't promise that there won't be challenges ahead, he said. But we can promise that we will do everything in our power to make sure we use our strength responsibly. The question isn't whether we can be trusted. The question is whether we, as a galaxy, can learn to trust each other. We all have power. We all have the ability to cause harm. But we also have the ability to build something better. Let's build it together. The room was silent for a moment. Then, the Elon leader nodded slowly. We have seen your strength, and we have heard your words. You have proven yourselves in ways we did not expect. Maybe it's time we begin a new chapter. One by one, the council members spoke. They agreed to work with humanity, to share knowledge, and to open the door to cooperation. It was not an easy decision, but it was the right one. President Carter felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The galaxy had agreed to work with humanity. It was the beginning of a new era, one where the fate of the galaxy would no longer be decided by the strong alone, but by those willing to work together. As the meeting concluded, the leaders of the galaxy began to make plans for the future. The road ahead was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had made its mark. They had proven themselves in battle. Now they had earned a seat at the table. The future was theirs too, shaped in with it. The future of the galaxy.